Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Live with NORML. I'm J.M. Padini, the Development Director at the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It's Friday, July 25th, 2025. You know what that means? It's time for us to talk about this week's cannabis policy and science news, and for me to answer your burning questions live. Let's get into it, friends. Take a quick second wherever you're watching. Hit that like, follow, or subscribe button so you never miss when NORML goes live. And drop a note in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. And let me know what your burning questions are. We'll see if I can answer them. Hey, Nick. Thanks for being first, as always, friend. Hey, Georgia. In Georgia. Georgia in Terrytown. I actually know where that is. Hey, everyone that just joined us. I see. Hey, everyone that just joined us on Instagram. Thank you so much. All right. It's been about 2 weeks since we got to hang out together. So we've got a lot to catch up on. Oh, hey, Jay Cooper. Thanks for your question. Jay Cooper on Instagram asks for my thoughts on merging the adult use and medical cannabis industries. I think that largely, I shouldn't say that. I think in many states, they're one and the same. Let me know more about what you're after with your question there, Jay Cooper, and maybe I can answer it better. I will tell you this. The need for consumer safety standards does not change based on whether or not one is an adult or a medical consumer. For that matter, they don't change whether you're consuming a cannabis or a so-called hemp product. Consumer safety should be at the top of everyone's list. Hey, Cheryl in Houston. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Catherine. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Happy Friday to you. Pot calls the kettle bong. Good to see everyone. Yeah, Catherine, perhaps. Catherine suggests that maybe that question was from some state that has a new program or is planning to launch a program. We'll see if I get more feedback. I can show comments if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. Why does it do this to me every week? If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, I'm able to show your comments, but I can't show them if you're on Instagram because I have to use an external browser for that. But I'll read them out loud so everyone can play along. Hey, Paula. Or Paul, whoever you are. Your picture is very tiny, so I can't even try to guess. Maybe you're Paul, maybe you're Paula, whomever you are, has a good question and asks this on Instagram. Also, Google just kicked me out of my, I think you all watch this happen every week. I even re-signed in this time to make sure it wasn't a problem, but nope, it still kicked me out. As soon as the show starts, Google gets mad. Paula or Paul asks, is it ever going to be legal nationwide? This question on Instagram. And will there be an end to federal prohibition? Yeah, yes, inevitably at some point there will be an end to federal prohibition. That's up to you. If Americans keep electing a Congress that won't pass a bill to take marijuana off the Federal Controlled Substances Act and just let states set their own policies without threat of federal interference, then you're not going to see nationwide legalization. You're not going to see the end of federal prohibition until you elect people to Congress who are willing to finish that job. So yeah, it could be. Yeah, Nick, I was waiting for your comment. Nick says Pennsylvania needs to make reform a priority. Tired of their excuses. There are new action alerts for Pennsylvania, Nick. I'm sure you know, but in case you don't, they're this is so hard to read when on the screen is tiny. There's the new adult use bill, the bipartisan adult use bill dropped in Pennsylvania. There's two of them, Senate Bill 120 and its companion bill, House Bill 1735. This is the sort of real deal that we've been waiting for. Then there's also House Bill 20, which similarly legalizes and regulates possession and sales. The good thing is about none of these seek to impose that state-run dispensary model, a policy that NORML has opposed very loudly. But weirdly, only 236 people in Pennsylvania thought this was a priority. Let me just go ahead and share that with you. It's a new alert, but let's make sure everyone in Pennsylvania is sending this action alert. Nick, I just put it in the comments. And then also in Pennsylvania, let me find it. Is it up yet? I think it's not up yet, but there is an action alert for Pennsylvania that is, oh, here it is. Way up at the top. Got it. A new bill just dropped that parental rights bill for Pennsylvania for Senate Bill 926 that would essentially prohibit the use of medical cannabis from being used to determine child custody or as the sole reason to order a drug test in a child custody case. Make sure you're sharing that. This is a very overlooked issue. And it's one of those topics that I know we talk a lot about here, but certainly doesn't get enough attention in the broader cannabis space. Post-legalization, there are still terrible consequences unless a state intentionally takes action to undo those bad policies. Legalization in and of itself is not enough to necessarily go through and undo all of the other bad laws that are in place specific to marijuana. Things like employment protections, parental rights, housing, access to healthcare, and access to education can all be impacted by marijuana laws even after legalization if the state has not taken the time to go through and clean everything up. Carl, I see your question. Give me 1 second. Where's the bill stand for? Demetria, I see your question also. Let me get Demetria's question first. Demetria is asking, where does the bill stand for medical or adult use in North Carolina? And in North Carolina, there are two bills that are, I guess, are technically still alive, though there hasn't been any action on them in some time. So the adult use measure in North Carolina is H413. It's in committee. It's in the Committee on Rules. The last action on it was March 18th. And the medical bill is the North Carolina Compassionate Care Act, H1011, H1011. And that is also in the Committee on Rules. And its last date of action was April 16th. We have action alerts for both of those. I'll drop them in the chat for you because why not? Why not? Here's one coming at you. And then let me grab that other one for you. You can, you can find all of these action alerts that we're talking about at normal.org/act, or if you're watching anywhere but Instagram, you can see them in the chat now. There we go. All right, there we go, we're doing it. Let me get to your question, Carl. Hey, Carl, thanks for your question on LinkedIn. Carl says, how does NORML view the new laws in Alabama that have smokable hemp as a class 3 felony versus personal possession of cannabis as a class A charge? Is class A a misdemeanor? I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in Alabama criminal code, Carl. And if you can provide any clarity on this, Carl, please do. I'm assuming, based on what you're asking, that possessing smokable hemp in Alabama is a class 3 felony now, whereas possessing cannabis, marijuana in Alabama is a class A misdemeanor. Is that accurate? Anyone who knows can feel free to join in responding to my questions. And let's see. Oh, class C. Okay, they're both felonies. A class A felony versus a class C felony. Got it. Thank you, Carl, for the clarification. Does that mean that which is worse in Alabama, an A or a C? And is it about possession for both? It seems weird. It seems strange if possession of arguably the same thing is different penalties based on what you call it. I'd have to look at it, and I can, but I don't have it right in front of me. You know, I think criminalizing possession is ick. If you're gonna prohibit the use of something, then assign the penalties to the retailers. Maybe do that instead. Hey, Chris. Chris asked if there's anything new in Virginia. No. I mean, yes, but also no. Nothing huge. There's a little bit of a issue that popped up today regarding medical cannabis certifications, but otherwise nothing new. The next Cannabis Oversight Commission meeting is August 20th. There's no agenda for it yet, but you can watch that, see what we talk about. You can live stream it, be there in person, whichever. But otherwise, nothing super interesting in Virginia. Bernie, I don't know what you mean. Bernie says, I heard the Virginia Cannabis Board has hired an enforcer. What is that going to mean to the illicit market? If the Cannabis Control Authority hired someone related to enforcement, then that would be related to the medical cannabis program, because that is the only cannabis over which the CCA has regulatory authority in Virginia. If VDACS, the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, which oversees the industrial hemp program, if they hired someone related to enforcement, I don't know. They have food inspectors. That's who their inspectors are for industrial hemp. But really, if we're talking about the illicit market, enforcement for the illicit market is through local law enforcement and to some degree through VDACS, but it's not through CCA. Hey, Lane, thank you for your question. We can just jump right into it after that. Lane asks, did Trump take away federal protection for marijuana patients nationwide? Well, his administration would like to. So there was an effort to remove the Rohrabacher-Farr language from a budget rider that has to be enacted every single year. But I will tell you the most pressing issue related to this whole topic that you and I are talking about right now, about federal protections for patients. I'm going to read a little bit about this too, so I can tell you more specifically. But there is federal funding legislation that has language protecting medical cannabis states from interference by the Department of Justice. This is the Rohrabacher-Farr language. It says DOJ cannot spend one single taxpayer dollar to interfere in state-sanctioned actions related to medical cannabis. Now, the House version of the CJS rider contains the language that we're talking about, that the administration tried to strike. The House version does contain this Rohrabacher-Farr language, but there's a new provision that was added that would create an exemption from those protections for medical cannabis manufacturing, sales, and possession with intent to distribute within 1,000 feet of certain special use areas like schools, universities, playgrounds, public housing. So yes, some states already require, 1,000-foot or a 500-foot buffer, or some amount of buffer from these types of areas, like meaning you can't put a dispensary next to a daycare. That's not uncommon in state regulatory models. But this goes well beyond that. This doesn't just say you can't put a dispensary next to a daycare. This says, hey, you in your home growing plants legally under state law, or you on your property possessing cannabis legally under state law, could be in violation if this were passed. So obviously, this provision could hurt businesses, but it also could hurt consumers. Most states don't zone medical cannabis businesses in this manner, meaning that many of them have to be in compliance with their own state laws from a business standpoint, but not consumers in their own home. It could be patients completely in accordance with their patients complying with state law, if this passed, could be subject to federal prosecution and double penalties if this provision were allowed to become law. Anyhow, the TLDR is that these new restrictions have nothing to do with protecting the children, but they will hurt millions of people who rely on legal medical cannabis to treat their healthcare needs and the thousands of businesses that are in place to support these patients. It would be super neat if everyone watching right now, I'm about to drop this in the chat. And if you're not able to see the chat, you can find it at normal.org/act. I'll pop that up for you right there. If you go to normal.org/act, you will see this 1, 2, 3, third bullet point from the top. Tell the House, don't restrict federal protections for patients and providers. Let me take that down. We'll go back over here. Thank you so much for your question, Lane. It's really important that we get this right in the budget. The budget writer. You're welcome, Demetria. Yes, Ryan, that is crazy. Hey, Bennett. Production. Good to see you. Richard, yes. Thank you for Richard made 2 comments. One, that Alabama moved to repeal patient access to botanical cannabis flower, and then goes on to say that the new law is voter fraud by the legislature. That's not, unfortunately, that's not an uncommon thing this year, where we are seeing lawmakers go after voter-approved cannabis laws. In fact, I've got an article for you right here, Richard. I am going to drop that in the comments right now. This is on Marijuana Moment, and this is an op-ed by NORML's Deputy Director Paul Armentano, titled, "Why Do Republican Lawmakers Keep Trying to Overturn Marijuana Laws Approved by Voters?" Yes, I said Republican, and it's okay when we say partisan words to point out who's doing the thing. That doesn't make it partisan. It's just true. Anyhow, thank you for your question or your comments, Richard. I appreciate that. Hey, it's what? I see your comment about employment in Virginia, and tell me more. Thank you, Carl, for clearing up what I was asking about earlier. Carl says having or selling hemp in smokable form is a more severe penalty than a small amount of cannabis. Okay, that's wild. Ryan is making a comment about Virginia and says maybe if we get a Democrat governor next election, we can finally get full legalization. Ryan is referencing the fact that Virginia does not have a retail sales component for its adult use legalization law. And Ryan, you are correct. There are 2 choices for Virginia voters this November. 2. Maybe other candidates will qualify for the governor's race, but they're not ever going to be governor. Not this time. And I'm not here to fix the 2-party system. It's what we've got in the context of whether we're getting a Republican or a Democrat governor in Virginia. Here's the thing. Virginians will either elect Abigail Spanberger as their next governor, and then they will be able to enact a retail sales measure. Or Virginians could elect the current lieutenant governor, Winsome Earl Sears, as the next governor. And then they will not get retail sales. In fact, they won't have the opportunity to even consider retail sales again until 2030. And on top of that, they will experience rollbacks. I say that with full confidence because we have spent every session since 2021 fighting rollbacks. Every session. I'm tired of it. Please stop electing people who are terrible on cannabis policy. Chris, you can probably get cannabis bath bombs somewhere. Hey, Jason, good to see you. Hey, Curtis. I think you know what I'm going to say. Hey, Curtis, thanks for your question. Curtis says, hey from Georgia. Hey to you. Could Trump reschedule marijuana? And would that make it easier for states because it's a Republican president signing off on it? Okay. I'm going to answer your question based on the way things are supposed to work. No, he cannot. This administration currently, though, seems to do whatever they want, regardless of what the Constitution requires or federal law requires. But the way it works under federal law is that in order to end prohibition, federal prohibition, Congress has to pass a law. Congress has to pass a law, and then the president has to sign. Congress has to pass a bill. The president has to sign the bill into law. And that has to remove marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act. There is like a watered down version. There's a watered down version of it called the States Act. We call it States 2.0 because we've seen it before. This is the second version. States 2.0 is not the same. It would provide relief for states, some relief for some states that have already enacted their own cannabis policies. But ultimately, no, that's not the way it happens. The way it happens is not by executive order. Does this president think that's how it happens? Maybe. Is he likely to do it? No. Like, hi, everyone, pay attention to what's going on around you right now. You're not getting any signs from this administration that they are pro-cannabis, other than his rhetoric on the campaign trail about how he was supposedly going to vote in Florida. His administration is not echoing those sentiments. And see the second part of it, would it make it easier? Maybe. Who knows? Oh, yeah, Nick. Nick mentions that the judge who was doing rescheduling hearings, that was a part of rescheduling, has retired. Let's jump into the next topic now that you're bringing this up. Here's something else. Speaking of rescheduling and lack of action, more specifically, the DEA has a new leader, has a new director. And he was approved this week. I just dropped, there, it's posting now. I just dropped the link to our coverage of this issue. You can find it on the front page of the NORML website at norml.org. But Terry Cole, who until recently was serving as the Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security here in Virginia. Oh, I should grab it, shouldn't I? I'm gonna, it's in the blog, but it's so good I'm gonna go get it separately. Okay, so Terrence Cole is the new head of the DEA. And he was the Secretary of Public Safety here in Virginia. And during his time as secretary, he posted, I just dropped a link in the chat to his LinkedIn post. where he takes a picture of himself standing in front of one of the doors at the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority. And he's smiling. And he says, "Surprise visit to the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority," which he tags in his LinkedIn post, "to say hello to our amazing employees, Commonwealth of Virginia." Space, period, space. Everybody knows my stance on marijuana after 30 plus years in law enforcement, space, comma, space. So don't even ask, space, exclamation point, space. Hashtag just say no, hashtag disorders, hashtag not legal number 4 distribution, except in Virginia. Hashtag health issues, hashtag thin blue line, hashtag back the blue. That should give you an overall flavor of who the DEA, who's running the DEA now. And I say this all to then, as a sort of lead up to his comments. Oh, I was hoping they were going to be in here. Okay, so one more gem from this gentleman. Throughout his tenure at the DEA and during his law enforcement background, he, of course, held a hardline approach to against the use of cannabis and claimed that cannabis use, quote, stunts brain growth, and he thinks it's linked to an increased risk of autism. Hate to break it to you, Terry, autism is hereditary. But sure. During a confirmation hearing this April, he said that he was, quote, not familiar with where matters stood in the administrative process to reschedule cannabis from Schedule 1 to 3. This process that was initiated by the Biden administration. Let's not forget that. But, quote, it'll be one of his first priorities when he arrives at DEA to see where we are in the administrative process. Start your clocks, everyone. Is it in fact one of his first priorities? Let's find out together. Yeah, nothing's happened since January on rescheduling. Is Terry going to jumpstart it? I don't know about that. Hey, Shannon, what are you just talking about generally? Shannon says basically they want to set it up to where they get to interpret it the way they want and apply it similarly. You're talking about the feds? Because yes. Catherine, I can't because I'm not reading it right now. But if I read it, then I could. Catherine asks, can you speak to the new definition of hemp in the proposed farm bill? Is there any cannabis plant that can be grown for food, fiber, or fuel that has no quantifiable THC? Seems like we could lose so much with this one. Is there any plant? I mean, I'm sure you could breed one that does that. Or you could, not you personally, whatever. The way it was written, I can tell you the way it was written the first time was not correct. And people don't follow it the way it's written anyhow. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. There we go. Catherine, thank you for sending that action alert. I really appreciate it. Hey, Mark. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Richard asked if NORML has student chapters at HBCUs. We have chapters wherever people want to start chapters. So if you know someone who wants to start a chapter at an HBCU, they can email me at normal@normal.org. Right, Catherine? Sounds like that's not working out too well in Alabama now. Catherine says, officer, this isn't THCA. I swear, it's weed, which also would be accurate because that's what THCA is. It's weed. It's weed. It's weed. It's weed. Oh, hey, Samuel. I hope you have a good time tonight. Good to see you. Youngkin needs to go, says it's what? Oh, good news. He is. He's going. He's done. He's probably going to try to burn it all down on his way out the door, but he's done. And no, this is the end of his term. Hey, Richard. Richard says 420 slate of candidates for 2025, 2026. And to that, I say yes. I say yes, and because I make banners today, and I'm very happy about it. You know, we have a comprehensive cannabis voter guide called Smoke the Vote. You can find it at vote.normal.org right here. Vote.normal.org. Check it out. Make sure you know who you're voting for and where they stand on cannabis policy. Ha! Richard, that's funny. Richard says RFK is a pot hater. He is now, but he wasn't before. OG Grandma has some. Is very hopeful and makes a prediction that President Trump will sign Schedule 3 executive order over the congressional summer recess. And like, he could, but that wouldn't reschedule cannabis. It's not how federal law works. Maybe if he signed it, that would convince the DEA to magically move it. He's not going to do that, though. Oh, Billy. Curious minds want to know what's in the cup I'm drinking. I can tell you're new to the show. This is iced tea. It's usually iced tea or sparkling water that smells like strawberry, but it is, in fact, iced tea today. And I don't just have this one, but I have more, just in case. We also have beer on tap in our office, but I'm doing this show, so they turn on at 4. The taps turn on at 4, and then they turn off at 5, and I'm here doing this from 4 to 5. Hey, Ryan. Ryan says, LOL, Republicans are far, far from majority favor of legalization. They would prefer to leave adult use completely illegal, while some, very few Republicans support medicinal cannabis. When it comes to politicians, yes. When it comes to the electorate, no. Like, even a majority of Republican voters support legalization. But the people who represent them don't. Chris, should you write the DEA? Oh, no, you should write your members of Congress. Sure. I know your comment was from 8 minutes ago, but it's so funny. Thank you. Glad you appreciated me reading hashtags. I'm sorry, I'm going to peek over here at Instagram because so many of you have joined. So many of you have joined on Instagram. Thank you. And I want to see, I don't want to miss any of your comments. Hey, Rastaman, welcome back. Has anything changed in Pennsylvania? Yes, there are 2 new adult use legalization bills that dropped. they're the real deal. They're bipartisan. These are the ones we were waiting for. There's a third one that's also okay. They're all in the same action alert. You can find it in our Take Action Center at norml.org/act. There is also a parental rights bill that just dropped this week in Pennsylvania that would provide direction for probably CPS, but in judges. But it essentially says you can't use medical cannabis alone to disqualify to in a custody case, or to use the fact that you have a certification is grounds alone for testing. So 2 of them. That's what's new in Pennsylvania. More bills. Okay, let's see. Hey, Joseph, thanks for joining. Thanks for your question. Oh, okay, I like this. Here's Joseph's question. Joseph says, great to see NORML keeping the conversation alive with Live with NORML. Thanks. It's inspiring to see a platform dedicated to cannabis policy and science, especially with so much momentum around reform. Again, I say thank you. Joseph goes on to say, a recent University of Houston poll showed 79% of Texans support expanding the state's medical cannabis program. What steps do you think are critical for Texas to move toward broader legalization or decriminalization in the next legislative session? Joseph, great questions. I am going to hide your question because I'm saying you can see more of me. I talk about this one a lot because we have a lot of viewers in Texas, obviously. Huge state, little reform. So in Texas, your medical cannabis program absolutely should be the focus. I'm not saying someone can't introduce, a state can't or shouldn't, right? Absolutely, someone should introduce a statewide decriminalization measure. Someone should continue introducing a statewide adult use measure. But your medical cannabis program, that's the sweet spot because it's already in place. Your legislature has had time to warm up to it, to build that emotional comfort. And you have those businesses that can now support more progressive expansion and reform in your state, and they will. So definitely that is a path to progress in Texas, is expanding your medical cannabis program. I think that you added botanical cannabis, so good, and made progress this year. You do have that language that allows some sort of physician discretion, but a step you could take is, which arguably is in name only, because you do have that language that provides some physician discretion when it comes to certifying patients. But you could do things like remove qualifying conditions altogether and simply let doctors decide. That's a great expansion, and then more points of retail access for your state. Critical. Thank you, Catherine, for clarifying that for me. Catherine says the new definition is no quantifiable THC in hemp in the new Farm Bill language. There's no, I don't know. I kind of feel like the industry brought this on itself. There's an acronym for that, and I probably shouldn't use it here. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Chris, wow. Chris says, what are the main contamination factors for cannabis? I think that depends on what part of the state or what part of the country you're cultivating. And then are we talking about flower Or are we talking about extraction-based products? Mycotoxins, though. Mycotoxins are a big one. Hey, Quinn, I'm trying to read your question. We'll just pop it up here and fly by the seat of my pants. Quinn asks this, or says this: in states like California, New York, and Michigan, local bans and zoning laws are gutting statewide legalization. They are creating cannabis dead zones that undermine access, equity, and economic viability. What is NORML doing to address the second wave of prohibition? And do you consider it the biggest threat to legalization today? We have spoken extensively about this from a consumer standpoint, not an industry standpoint, because we don't represent the industry, we represent consumers, but we have written about this extensively. Yes. NIMBYism has always been an issue when it comes to cannabis, but not only are we seeing voters have to contend with local measures that prop up that sort of not in my backyard mentality. And listen, if voters are voting for that, presumably it's what they want. If you're in a locality and you know that there is a referendum about local bans, retail bans, you need to organize around that. And we're happy to help provide support for that. We just need to know about it. And then what we are seeing now, and we talked a little bit about this earlier in the show, is that lawmakers, particularly Republican lawmakers, very, very much Republican lawmakers, keep trying to overturn marijuana laws that voters have approved. So it is absolutely a problem across the nation. What do we do about that? We write about it. We write about it at NORML. We write about it for other outlets like High Times and Marijuana Moment and op-eds around the country. You can see all of our op-eds, all of our media hits and are in the media section on the NORML website. And then we have action alerts. We use the tools that we have to empower constituents to contact their lawmakers opposing bad actions and supporting good ones. Chris, thank you. I'm glad you approve of my iced tea. I mean, Richard, you're not wrong. Richard says Trump needs a distraction from Epstein and legalizing cannabis will help. You're not wrong. That's kind of what happened in Virginia. A little less gross, but opportunity presented itself. And fortunately, the work had already been done to make it a fast and smooth. I mean, not that someone didn't intervene and mess it all up, but we did our work. Oh, in Delaware. Hi, Noni on Instagram, who is commenting about their wife becoming a supervisor at a dispensary in Delaware. Good for your wife. Your worry is that to start, they will be having liquor store hours. What's your concern? They close at 9 o'clock. Are you worried that that's too late? Tell me more. Oh, Chris. Okay, Chris says let's highlight what our best legal stances for legalization. And then Chris goes on to say, let's push science. It depends on where you are. And I'll tell you this, honestly, it's not, if you are in a state that has not achieved significant reform, facts, science, reason are not going to get you there. The problem is emotional discomfort within your legislature. If you have a legislature, and this could apply to Congress as well, If you have people who are used to prohibition, and in fact, a lot of them profit off of prohibition, or their primary funders profit off of prohibition, they don't want to disrupt that system. They do not have emotional comfort with disrupting that system because their biggest supporters will lose money, they will lose money, and they're used to the way it is. They like that. It works for them. It's not impacting them. They feel fine with it. It's that running up at someone and being like, look, well, don't pick up your mail. Look, I've got data, I've got facts. They don't care. They literally don't care. It is not how we change hearts and minds. You have to tell them a story that they can feel, that resonates with them. So usually you're going to have to start with medical cannabis. Hey, Glenn. Well, you can email us, Glenn. I see your question about your movement. And what's your biggest hurdle for what? Tell me more. Oh, Bob, I'm so glad you mentioned this because I will lead me into another. I feel like we're doing none of this. We're doing no news this week. We're just answering questions, which is fine. Funny, Bob, that you say this because I've got something to share with you. Bob says, Schedule 1 is a joke. Agreed. We need the feds to acknowledge cannabis is innocuous, even beneficial. After all these years, that reefer madness BS needs to end. Well, we at NORML don't think we absolutely could agree that cannabis can be beneficial. We do not believe it's innocuous. However, the federal government, right, which keeps cannabis in Schedule 1, has a USDA database that describes marijuana as, quote, medicinal. And there's a lot of irony in that and hypocrisy that the federal government has a database and they call marijuana medicinal, but at the same time, they keep marijuana in Schedule 1 and claim it has no medical utility. Make it make sense. You can read this on Marijuana Moment. We're quoted in the article. NORML's Deputy Director Paul Armentano says this, quote, scientific consensus has long challenged the federal government's longstanding flat earth position toward cannabis. There's more on that. Definitely check out this piece on Marijuana Moment. Thank you for your question. You're okay. Hey, Quinn, you're in Idaho. Or no, you write about it. I hope you're not in Idaho, but if you are, more power to you. I don't know about that. Yeah, Andrew points out that multiple countries within NATO have medical cannabis for PTSD. You know, we have millions of Americans who use medical cannabis lawfully for PTSD and other reasons. Oh, right, exactly, April. And in fact, that's what HHS said in their portion of the rescheduling petition. Okay, so April says this doesn't make sense at all. It should be Schedule 2 or 3 if they say it's medicine, and that's the point of the rescheduling petition that's out there that was initiated under the Biden administration. And in fact, the HHS came back and said, yes, we find that cannabis has medical utility, and we believe it belongs in Schedule 3. Hi, April in Oregon. Monique, exactly. Hi, Ohio did backburner their, they canceled their votes on some bad legislation. again, interfering with what voters have already approved in the state's legalization law. What is that? Okay. Yes. All right. Perfect. I hope I got all your questions. If you have questions, you just got a few minutes to ask them. I am going to get into some news, though. We talked about the new DEA director a little over a week ago in Nebraska. The Omaha tribe of Nebraska approved legalization on reservation lands, and big high five to them. The newly adopted tribal code took effect immediately, and it permits adults to possess up to an ounce of marijuana on the reservation, establishes a cannabis regulatory commission for the creation of their retail model, and it creates a pathway for expungement of prior tribal cannabis offenses. All great things coming out of the Omaha tribe of Nebraska. And I loved their press release that said, hey, we're the first in Nebraska to legalize and regulate marijuana. Yes, you are. Love it. Sometimes they are, Chris. Chris says, I'm beginning to think laws for growing and consuming cannabis is a joke. Like, what is it hurting you or me other than kids getting a hold of it? Laws can be terrible, but then laws can also protect consumers when it is legal. Hey, Lou said we talked about Alabama a little bit earlier. Oh. Chris Ware. Chris says, how can we tighten security at the register for underage safety? That we don't, in regulated cannabis, in licensed dispensaries, state licensed dispensaries in the United States, there have been numerous compliance checks, numerous studies on compliance. And check after check after check is a near 100% compliance rate. That is not in any way analogous to what you see with like tobacco or alcohol. You're not near 100% compliance on age verification. You also don't have to show your ID to get into the liquor store and then show your ID again at the counter to make your purchase, but you do in dispensaries. I think we're pretty good on security in licensed dispensaries. Now, as for everyone else out there who's selling who knows what to who knows who, gross, stop. But yeah, licensed dispensaries, they're getting it right. Exactly, Jason. Yes, just like in Nebraska, just like in North Carolina with Cherokee. Exactly. Yes, Quinn rightly points out that studies indicate youth use decreases in states where cannabis is legal. I know this is going to come as a shock to everyone, but when you take marijuana off the street corner and put it behind an age-verified counter, then it's more difficult for children to access it. What? What else did we do? We did the USDA database. I hope you all know that High Times is back. If you don't know this yet, High Times is back. High Times is back. And NORML has been a contributor to High Times for decades, and NORML's back in High Times as well. NORML Deputy Director Paul Armentano has a great piece in High Times right now called Marijuana Prohibition is and Always Has Been a Sham. Go read it. I just dropped the link in the chat. Otherwise, you can find this at hightimes.com. I know that they have a post about it on their Instagram as well. Check it out. Paul writes that after nearly a century of canna bigotry, the truth couldn't be clearer. Marijuana prohibition has been a fraud from the beginning, often propagated by politicians and bureaucrats who were in on this sham. It's high time we end it. I want to let you all know, I have a few more. Okay, since we were talking about polling just a minute ago, there is, Quinn, I'm looking at you, there is a new Pew poll that came out. Very few Americans support the federal government's blanket prohibition on cannabis. In fact, 87% of Americans say that cannabis ought to be legal for either medical or adult use. 87%. This is nationwide polling that was conducted by the Pew Research Center. Check it out. It's on the front page of NORML.org. Lucid brings up some good points here about taxation. Lucid says cannabis tax should not be over 15% anywhere. We should be fighting for deschedule, not reschedule. We can do both. It's okay. They are not the same thing, but it will take steps to get exactly. Yeah, so the way it works in the federal government, when the federal government's operating properly, who knows what's happening now, but rescheduling is an administrative process. Descheduling, removing marijuana from the Controlled Substances Act, has to happen by an act of Congress. So we can do both. It's okay. It's okay. One, they're not mutually exclusive. It's fine to move forward with rescheduling. What rescheduling is doing is the government abandoning its flat earth position that marijuana has no medical utility. And that is important. Moving marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 doesn't really have any meaningful impact on the consumers, other than it opens the door for there to potentially be the ability for cannabis businesses to start taking tax deductions. Standard business tax deductions. They can't do that right now. So when you go to your dispensary and you're like, especially on the East Coast, you're like, why does cannabis cost so much? These businesses can't take tax deductions. So if they could, then it's reasonable to assume that then you would see lower prices for consumers, and that would be good. But otherwise, it doesn't have any impact on consumers. Everything that is illegal, right? All these states that are operating in conflict with federal law, with marijuana Schedule 1, and all these states have adult and medical cannabis programs, and they're in conflict with that, they'll still be just as in conflict with it under Schedule 3. None of that will change, other than giving up the ghost on the no medical utility bit. And marijuana being scheduled more severely than fentanyl. Taxation is a real concern, though. Lucid, we talk a lot about that at NORML. We've done some work in this past legislative cycle to fight tax hikes, even though there were still tax hikes. I think I'm proud to say Virginia is not doing. Virginia has its head in the right space when it comes to what sort of tax rate we're looking at for adult use. If you overtax your consumers, they won't buy legal products. They'll buy illicit market products. That's like self-defeating. That's defeating the goals of legalization. When your laws incentivize consumers to engage in illicit market activity, illegal activity instead of legal activity, your laws are bad. We write public policy, and so those policies should serve and protect the public, and incentivizing them to not engage in legal behavior is a weird way to do that. Hey, Sean. What? Okay. Oh, thank you, Sean, for clarifying. I did need that clarity. Now I can go back and read this. And okay, hi, Sean. Sean says it's hard to even keep up with it all. Honestly, just keep trucking without them allowing adult use growers to be licensed. We're just forcing anyone in the industry to operate in the gray area, which is a whole other thing politically. But it sucks. We have to resort to operating in the gray area, to put it respectfully. That's a good way to put it respectfully, Sean. It's almost like elections have consequences, friend. And yeah, I said this a little earlier in the show, but listen, in Virginia, you have 2 choices for governor this November, and only one of those choices will sign. Only one of those choices has committed to signing an adult use retail measure. The other choice thinks marijuana kills people or makes you kill people. If it's either Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, and then you get retail sales, or it's the other one, and you do not have the opportunity to even look at retail sales until 2030, and there will be rollbacks. And I'm too old and tired for that, so please vote. Scoob, there are 403 people watching. There are 12 of them on YouTube. Everyone else is somewhere else. This is streaming on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram. It was 2 Instagrams, but one of them shuts off after an hour. Thank you, Lisa, for having my back. Okay. Who are you voting for? It's what? If you're voting in Virginia for governor this November, you want to see cannabis laws continue to move forward, you would do well to vote for Abigail Spanberger. You can find out all of this on our voter guide. Sean, what about cultivation? You mean like licensing for adult use? Yes, all of that. Yes, Scoob. We have, I'm going to put the banner up real quick. We have a voter guide. It's called Smoke the Vote. You can find it at vote.normal.org. If there's an election in your state, it's going to show up on the voter guide. I think 90 days is the earliest we can make it populate, because our data on some of our data, the part about when the election is, that comes from VoteSmart, and they only, I think 90 days is the earliest we can get that. So for example, you will see some states have elections soon, and so those are visible. But I know if you go to Virginia on Smoke the Vote right now, you won't see the election listed because we're not 90 days out yet. But I assure you, I am always keeping an eye on that and trying to get it to populate as soon as possible. But yes, vote.normal.org is where you can find our voter guide. Oh, can we please get more than 4 plants? Yeah, maybe not in 2026. First, let's elect a governor who's not crazy. Second, let's enact a retail measure. And then emotional comfort, right? That's what we're building. We are building upon emotional comfort. Do I think we can go from 4 to 6? Maybe. But it's not going to be in 2026. In Virginia, that's what we're talking about. Why is it 4? Thank you for your question. It's 4 in Virginia because originally it was 2. It was 2 mature and 2 immature plants. And this came from the Northam administration. And we used a spreadsheet that fortunately I had access to at that point in time. And they were asking for feedback from myself, from some other people. And I went into that document and I changed it from 2 and 2 to 4. There was a column like that was like, here's what it is. What do you think it should be? And I said it should be 4 total, because who's going into someone's house and measuring plants? Nobody. Just make it 4 and get on with it. And they said, okay. So that's why you have 4 and not 2 in Virginia. Can we get to 6? Probably, but it's not. I need a few years of moving other things forward to get that emotional comfort. It's not about not wanting to do it. It's that you don't have non-elected people that are willing to do that for you in Virginia at this point in time. Oh, Sean, thank you. When I say retail sales, I mean the whole thing. I mean licensing for the whole component, for cultivation, for manufacturing, for retail, all of it, all the same. So it's all going to be in one bill. Hey, Richard, we don't have local races don't appear in Smoke the Vote. It's only statewide, but oftentimes local NORML chapters will put out local voter guides. Yes, Homie does know what they're talking about, I assure you. Thanks, Sean. Oh, sorry your plants are tiny. We don't have a canopy size limit on personal cultivation in Virginia. Hey, Monique. Yeah, Ohio, man. God, we were so happy to finally pass legalization there, and then your state legislature, crazy. Youngkin's not going to sign anything, Quinn. He is not going to sign anything. And he just not going to have the opportunity to, because he's at the end of his term. He's out of office in January. Okay, let me go through this because it's almost 5:15. Let me go through and see. We talked about Pew. Oh, I wanted to tell you about this hair follicle testing study that we covered. And this is about passive exposure to secondhand cannabis smoke. And there was a study that was done, and they had study participants were exposed to secondhand smoke from cannabis from a single joint. They were exposed to it for 15 minutes in a non-ventilated environment. The subject's hair samples tested positive for THC following this passive secondhand exposure, and all the subjects tested negative for THC metabolites in their urine. So sitting around someone that was hotboxing you for 15 minutes didn't make you have a dirty urine test, but it did make your hair test positive. Very interesting study. Yes, we passed legalization in 2021 in Virginia under then Governor Ralph Northam. Okay, I have a few, go through these real quick. Okay, there was a study an analysis that we wrote about last week. Adult use states, legal states, are experiencing significantly higher home value growth. States with legal, this is a quote from the study, states with legal recreational cannabis have seen home values climb by $222,958 over the past 15 years, compared to $162,631 in states where it's illegal. That's a $60,327 difference. This isn't the first analysis that has said this. There have been other analyses that have reached similar. I'm going to call you abortion. That's going to person on Instagram who asked me this question, I'm just gonna, I see your very entertaining ID. Abortion asks, do you guys still charge to join? Yes, we're a nonprofit, and you can subscribe to NORML for free and get all of our information and access all of our resources for free. That's all for free at norml.org. But if you would like one of these sweet, sweet membership cards, and I know you do, you can put your name on the back, to be considered an official member of NORML, it's $42 per calendar year. norml.org/join. Thank you for asking. Camp Boss, you're welcome. And thank you for your comment. Yeah, Texas. Hey, Leah. Texas is still in the fight. We talked about Texas a bit earlier in the show. We talked about Republican lawmakers trying to overturn marijuana laws approved by voters. This is something that we've seen before, but I'm going to share it with you again. There's some clinical trial data that is showing compelling evidence, they say, that vaporized cannabis helps mitigate migraine symptoms. Drop that in the chat for you. Oh, Monique, that's cool. Monique says, I run a 420 friendly Airbnb that gets quite a bit of bookings, though I don't know how it compares to other Airbnb bookings. Do you just do Airbnb or do you do bed and breakfast? Yeah, exactly, Shannon. Now people cannot buy a home. That's right. It's what you can find a lawyer at lawyers@norml.org. Go. lawyers@norml.org. You get that for free, just right there. You can also email your question. If you have any legal questions, you can email those to us for free at NORML at legal@norml.org, legal@norml.org. And then if Keith can't answer it for you directly, he'll refer you to somebody who can. Chris, exactly. Go Omaha Tribe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Sativa girl. Do normal lawyers prefer to grow their own? I haven't pulled them exclusively on that, but I do know that there are NORML legal committee members who live in states where cannabis is legal to cultivate for personal use, and they do. Two more stories I'm going to tell you about real quick. Oh, no, just one. One, just to close it out, I want to remind you all that there's been a lot of talk about adverse cardiovascular events related to cannabis because people like to sell books. And the media are lazy. However, here is yet another study that you can throw on the pile. Cannabis consumption is not associated with an elevated risk of adverse cardiovascular events in older adults. In fact, older adults who consume cannabis are no more likely to suffer from heart attack and stroke as compared to non-users, according to longitudinal data that was just published in the journal Circulation. You can read all about that in the news section of NORML at norml.org/news, or just click the news button. We have the front page where we have some entries, and then we have the news section. And the news section has everything that you get in our email newsletters. If you aren't getting our newsletter yet, you can just go to norml.org/subscribe. It's right there on the front page, right? There's a box up in the corner. Make sure you check the box for weekend weed read so you get that tomorrow. NORML News of the Week comes out Thursdays, 4:20 Eastern, because I'm funny. And then Saturday morning, between 9 and 9:15, you'll get NORML's weekend weed read. It's a great way to start your weekend. you'll catch up on all the things. Yes, it's what, just email us at legal@normal.org. Tell us what you're looking for, and we'll see what we can do. Okay. Let me see if I have any comments or questions on Instagram. Perfect. I think we did it, friends. This is a very long show today because it's been 2 weeks, but we'll try to do it again next week. What? Tea is different? This is just regular iced tea. Regular plain iced tea that I brewed at home. There's nothing fun in there other than sugar. Are we going to do the show next week? Let me just double check real quick and make sure. Yeah, okay. Hey, friends, this has been fun. We try to do this. I try to do Live with Normal on Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern. And most Fridays I do. I'd love it if you would join me back here next time. Hit that like, follow, or subscribe button wherever you're watching so you never miss when Normal goes live. If you're watching this back afterward and you have questions, great. Why don't you just email us and we'll try to answer them. You can email us at normal@normal.org. It's a real email address, and I really do see that. If it's a question for me personally, just say, hey, JM, I have a question for you. Answer this. And then no one else will try to respond because it'll be for me. You guys had great questions this week. I love catching up with you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all you do to help us legalize America. It's only together that we are going to be able to get the job done. If you haven't joined Normal, today's the perfect day to do it. You can do it at normal.org/join. Friends, I'm J.M. Padini. I'm the development director here at NORML, the national organization for the reform of marijuana laws. This has been a blast, and as always, I will see you right back here next time. Bye-bye.